Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a April 23rd edition of the MSP Initiative MSP Talk podcast. Guys, it is the NFL draft tonight. So if you're an NFL fan, and I think a lot of you are, we'll be tuning in. I know I'll be headed into Pittsburgh this weekend. So if you're in town for the draft or you just live there, drop me a line and maybe we can meet up in person. Anyway, all eyes on ESPN tonight. That being said, let's go through some housekeeping because there's a little bit of that, and then we'll get into the good stuff. So, mspinitiative.com. That's where we try and put all the stuff that we do on a regular. We've done a bunch of stuff recently. We had back in March, we had a IT community block party with Zero Trust World and the great people at ThreatLocker. Thank you very much for working with us again. It was a great event. Then fast forward to just a week ago, we were in Fort Lauderdale with the folks from Enable at their Empower event, which is awesome. Had a MSP community block party there. It was great. Cool vibes. Enjoyed it. And we're gearing up for this upcoming week, which I believe both of the people on this podcast are going to be there, which is the Kaseya Connect Global in Vegas. And as everybody probably knows, the DattoCons took a final end last year in Miami in 2025. So that the Kasei announced that they were moving forward with just their one big regional event per continent, basically. So this is the Connect Global, U.S. North America. There is a Connect Europe in Prague in June. We will also be there doing also another block party, and that's going to be a great time. And then later on, I think it's even a little bit later this year, in November, is the Kaseya Connect APAC, and that'll be in Sydney at the convention center right there in the harbor. Great venue last year, by the way, so I'm glad they're going back there. So anyway, those are the three Kaseya Connect events. First one next week in Vegas. We're going to be on site at the MGM at Hakkasan, which is the go-to nightclub without walking out on the strip, by the way, because we know what happens once you get lost to Vegas at night. So, on site, on property, a big thank you again to the folks behind the conference. There's a lot of people involved, and man, I love these big conferences, but they sure are a ton of work, and we are just one very small but fun part of the picture. So, love collaborating with everybody. And last but not least, so we have Vegas next week. Fast forward into June, we have the Prague Connect, Europe, and then right after that is a fun one. I'm fond of this one. It was in Tampa last year, moved to Nashville this year. It's the Flow Conference, which is run by the great folks at Roost. Looking forward to headed to Nashville to add to the pile of places that we're going to this year, and then we take a break, right? And we reset and talk about the back end of the year. I know for a fact a bunch of people are headed out to the GTIA, formerly known as CompTIA, Channel Con, which is in San Diego. I believe it's the first week of August. And then, just like last year, we had a really good success with the Channel Sports Tour, where we took a lot of MSPs to NFL games, and we're probably going to do that again. Got to wait for the NFL schedule to come out, which first we have to wait for the draft. Draft's over. Give it a couple weeks and release the schedule. But I know for a fact in the first week of September, as we continue down the calendar here, is the NFL's first game in Australia, in Melbourne. So we're probably going there first. Just thinking out loud. But anyway, stay tuned. MSPinitiative.com. That's where we park all this stuff. Housekeeping officially over. And now we bring on for the first time a new person to the podcast, Mike Anderson from Easydmarc, which Mike couldn't help but paying attention because I was getting ready for next week in Vegas. I think you guys are like the platinum sponsor of the conference.
We will be there and we will be on the main stage in front of 3,500 strong of the best and brightest IT minds on the planet.
Awesome. Well, since it's your first time on, Mike, I really, a lot of people always come from different realms, right? Yeah, to get to now, today. Would love to hear a little bit of your background. Like, how did you get like through technology land to where you're at now, maybe? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so, had a traditional technology SaaS career for the last probably 27 years. And my first SaaS job, believe it or not, was in 1999, before SaaS
Wow.
was even a term. Worked for a company called CarSmart that was bought by Auto and so we were selling car leads, car buying leads to the dealerships in a SaaS model. So that before it was called SaaS, you just had our software and downloaded leads, but that's what it was. And so went through that in the data center groups and the big, resellers like CDW and the big infrastructure people like Fujitsu, Lenovo, AT&T, and then got into the MSP game about a dozen years ago. I was employee number one with IT Boost, and we built that.
IT boost.
IT
Okay.
Boost, yeah, and so helped build that, and it sold to ConnectWise, and then worked in an MSP for a little bit, and then launched the MSP and indirect business for Easydmarc about 3.5 years ago. And we have just been very fortunate. Let's just put it that way.
Awesome. Well, you have been on both sides of the aisle, it seems like, which is great. Before we go down anywhere else, I was just talking on the last podcast about the current day car buying market because I had just been through it. And Mike, the bad, bad, bad experience of how these dealers, I'm not talking about, I went a lot of places, but even the high end guys, the AI thing, and from a customer engagement standpoint or a prospective buyer standpoint for that matter, not good. Not what I saw. And it was consistently bad, and you could tell it was bad. And like, I don't understand why I would go back and forth via email or text with what I think is a human being, schedule an appointment, show up at said appointment, and they had no idea who I was, what I needed, why I was there, when I was there, and like they had to look information up at that point to figure out what I was doing in their store. And that was the status quo, my friend. Like they had no clue.
Yeah, that's the unintended consequences. I remember being in the business early on when car buying over the internet first started. Everybody had AOL, so you had to dial up, get online, do your research, and then submit a quote to us, and we would call you back and say, "Hey, that car you can get for this price." And they would always go, "Well, the internet told me I could get it for this price," and I would go, "Well, that's fantastic. Call the internet and buy from the internet. Until then, you can come to me and get it for this other price." And so it wasn't bait and switch, but sometimes those processes aren't congruent. I guess 27 years later, they're still not congruent. I love technology when it actually works.
Right? This is the key when it actually works. So obviously, that's a big, AI seems to be every other conversation these days. And we all talk about the practicality of it. And like I always talk about something that everybody's experienced, whether it's the airlines or the fast food places. And like at the end of the day, here's what it comes down to. Um, you can do business with somebody the first time, but will they come back for the second time? That is the clutch and the whole conversation. And if there's a bad experience, you don't get them back the second time. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of ideation out there, but not a lot of good, uh, you know, all-in-one wrappers. Now I'm seeing advertising for, hey, you can plug this in and we'll pull from 6 sources and make your, entire experience seamless. But I've yet to see that. And I went to try it and it was like $200 a month and you can find out. And I'm like, I think I'm just going to wait until I've got some more empirical evidence. But this stuff will undoubtedly make our lives easier, and whether the job market and what all it does, I think there'll be some replacement, but I think there'll be some new things come out of it, and efficiencies. I think there'll be plenty of opportunity all around for everybody. But
Sure.
there's a lot of talk in the industry, but there's not a lot of action and implementation. There's a lot of people dipping their toe in the water, and I talk to 10,000 MSPs a year. And so, a lot of, well, we're kicking it around or we're implementing a first stage, but nothing that I've seen that's just really robust that plugs into the MSP environment. And I think it's coming there now. We have some really cool stuff going, and I've heard, there's some AI modeling on, using ticket landscape and threat landscape and the physical landscape, pulling it all into one to be doing predictive modeling on, you know, I've got these 200 businesses and these systems are similar. So this guy broke down and this guy over here has the same systems. So the probability he'll be coming to the same conclusion, and all that sounds great, but I really need to see it in practice to see if it works. But those kind of things, will really set business to the next level if you can do predictive modeling and remediation before, events ever occur.
Yeah. Then we go back to the age old, well, what do you actually do for me? That's all it all works.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like it works because
I'm
you're
like,
paying us to
I
keep it
can
running.
I can shut it all off if you want.
Yeah, that's what
See
it
how that
is.
works out for you. They're like, yeah, that's okay. I'm going to keep paying you.
Yeah, no, yeah, but that conversation is an oldie but a goodie because that's what it all comes to. So, but yeah, it was so funny that you started your path there in the car business, and I was just like, man, like that was not good. I had to work really hard to get to my outcome, and I got there. But I
Yeah,
would say that I was a little bit more motivated to get to where I was trying to go than the
yeah.
average person, you know?
Yeah, that when humans are in control of the outcome and you try to AI and automate the front end of it, and you still get back to a human making a decision, you're gonna invariably run into that. When I bought a brand new Tahoe last December, and so I just walked in. I knew what I could, based on the sticker, what about their wholesale price was. I'm not opposed to them making a little bit of profit. I knew what my financial calculations about would be, so I just came in and said, based on this car, here's the number you need to get to on a monthly lease payment, and they worked it and went back once or twice. But I told them this is where you got to be, and I told the guy I was in the car business for 5 years, so he wasn't about to, But not everybody has that same experience. I get that, so I had a little bit more smooth experience because I knew right where that place could be, and your credentials walk in front of you a lot of times in doing that, my experience. But to the average car buyer, boy, you're in for a treat if you are not a confrontational person or a person that is, yeah, I don't want to say aggressive, but outgoing enough to push back on what you want. You may get a bad deal. You may get run over. I tell you that right now.
I have to think, and it's just like doing this, but I gotta suspect that most people are not getting a great deal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. There's a lot of hidden costs and profit in there, and if especially and if I didn't trade in a car, so my deal was just super super clean. But if you're trying to trade a car, what your car is worth, that's a matter of opinion. And if you're not in the car business, do you really know what your car is worth on the wholesale market? You think you do, and of course you want all the money for it, but the auto dealer, they have to get it, recondition it, do all the maintenance, put all the money into it, retitle it. All that costs money. That's overhead, that comes out of your profit. It's just a complex
Well, I'll
calculation.
tell you this though. I ended up, but back to technology, right? Since we're using cars, and I love this topic because everybody's dealt with cars at some level. So I
Yeah,
did like the CarMax, the Carvanas, right? Like you
yeah,
put in your VIN
yeah,
number, right? They're like, oh,
yeah,
here's our price, good for
yeah,
5 days. We'll come pick it up. Da 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 da.
yeah.
And like I started my day off. I took a day off, and I went to 5 places. It started off with CarMax, Carvana, and then I
Oh
went to
my God.
three in-person dealers, and I ended up making another 4,500 bucks.
Nice.
And,
Yeah,
and like, but I needed to go through that in
and
order to get to my price.
And now you see what, that was still the case 27 years ago when internet car buying first started. We could give you rough estimates, but you still had to go in to make the final deal because there's still some level of human decision making going on. And I think that's a lot like how AI will be. The AI will give a lot of governance, but at some point there'll be a human making the final call because AI, we're not how do you want to play a game? I don't think we're that evolved with AI
But
yet.
but look at the parallel here, though, Mike, because I'm going to keep going down this road. The
Yeah,
VIN checker and the computer warranty checker. It's basically the same thing, right?
yeah.
Like, although I could argue the Carfax and all the other things that do like similar products, like they're not perfect.
No,
Like I've heard all these horror stories through
no.
this journey about the license plate. not transfer, like they kept the plate, they put it on another car. All of a sudden, the wrong maintenance is associated with the wrong car, and now your mileage just says is that it's not matching up, and like it's Pandora, and then it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to get them to fix that, and now you can't sell your car. Like that stuff's a thing.
I love technology when it actually works.
There it is. All right, so let's get right into it then. The last 3 days or so, like this week, very, very real time, current events. I feel like I've hit a lot of the popular MSP online forums, the Facebooks, the Reddits, the Discords, Slacks, whatever. And man, people were getting absolutely spammed. And everybody kept on saying something like, you got to go to your 365, you got to log in as your PowerShell, to PowerShell because it's something you can only do there, and you got to turn off direct send or something like this. And I was like, what happened to like the 18,000 products out there that were supposed to help this? Like, is this like a straight up Microsoft thing? And they're like, yeah, it's a Microsoft. It's like they figured out a way to like piggyback off of Microsoft's like inherent built-in technology to like get around a lot of that. And then it just like you're basically sending an email to yourself kind of thing.
I heard that story 3 times this week.
And I was like, dude, this was literally all the rage on every forum, on every like it was like I literally saw the same post by 8 different people everywhere I went. And so maybe you can paint the picture for everybody. Like what happened this week that the bad guys
I
figured out
mean,
something?
that's not really part of my purview.
Sure.
Microsoft is a beast on its own,
Yeah.
and somebody using a Microsoft exploit, nothing new. Well, not
Hmm.
like it hadn't happened. Are you really surprised?
Mm.
But what we do is the control layer of people not being able to use a domain to spoof other users. Now, if somebody exploits Microsoft and gets behind the wall, that's a
Yeah.
totally different story. But I can't take your domain and make a header where it's coming from Mike.com and it looks like it's going back to George.com. We make a product that will analyze a company's corporate's domain and every single sending source that they use to be able to configure it, command and control so that nobody can use you as an imposter to go defraud people is the typical thing that's used, or, maybe click on a link for ransomware. But we, prevent spoofing via lockdown. But, all of these exploits that are out there, that's super complex and, having visibility through what I would call the entire email infrastructure layer. Most people do not have. Most MSPs have visibility from inception to sending, but they don't know what's happening from sending to ending. And our platform will give you entire visibility through that entire layer, from the control layers through the ESPs, the credentialing, all of it. And so you really got to have your ducks in a row, right? And most MSPs don't with all of their customers. Now they're starting to get on board. And when we launched our MSP practice 3.5 years ago, most people scoffed at DMARC as a service. They were like, "That's just some simple setting. Why would I ever, buy your product or charge for it? I can't get no money now." And we've got over 3,300 MSPs later in 3 years. They're not scoffing now, are they? Because the service providers made DMARC mandatory and email deliverability went in the garbage without DMARC compliance, that DMARC compliance layer. And so, that having all of your, controls in place, paramount, as you see, because, these exploits, you never know where the next threat is coming from. And we help people do that.
Well, I will say that even in 2026, I mean, we can argue all the different channels, right? WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, text message, phone call, Discord, Telegram. I could go on and on, so many. But email, when it comes to business, still pretty much at the top of the list, man.
Number one threat vector on the planet, undisputed, not even close. And so, there's two components of this. Number one, controlling your cut. If you're an MSP, controlling your customer's domain plane so nobody can impersonate it. spoof it, but also, not only having that control of the inbox, what's coming in, all of that spamming. The next wave, and mark my words, you heard it here first. They're going to hear it next week on stage. The next week is, the sending outcome from sending to ending. Do you have visibility for your clients? And why do you want to have that if you're an MSP? Because MSPs are starting to get a lot of tickets. Hey, we fixed DMARC, but my invoicing is still not delivering. What's wrong? And when the MSP says, we don't know, that's never a good thing if you're an supposedly IT expert. And so we're announcing our new Easy Sender product, not to be too commercialized, but this gives you visibility through that sending layer to the ending of all the customers' emailing streams, what's good and what's harming their customer, so that you can have, you know, analysis, visibility, command and control to be able to then use the right practices to get your customer back up on, the road, metaphorically, to sending emails, and delivering into the inbox. That is the holy grail. There's terms, email performance. Some people call it deliverability. Some people call it inboxing. We like to say email performance because there's a whole layer. That inboxing part is just the last layer, but it's an important layer. If you're an IT operator, and you can't tell your customer what their inbox performance is, when they come ask you about it, that's going to be a challenge, right? And typically their customers have just gone off to a boutique somewhere, an email boutique, and solved their deliverability issues. And if you're an MSP, why would you ever let anybody get an IT foothold in your customer base? That is first step to disaster, letting somebody else get a foothold in your customer base. And so now MSPs can easily solve for inboxing performance using platforms like ours.
Hmm. Um, I will say that I at least a regular thought to this conversation is something you said earlier. It's like, remember the commercial? Just said it and forget it. It was a
Yeah,
chicken rotisserie thing.
yeah.
And I was just like, I actually just brought that up on another thing, and they were like, oh yeah, I do remember that guy. Just YouTube it. It's a thing. Um, it's clear that this topic to a lot of people seems static, but in reality, like anything else, it ebbs and flows, right? People change the dials, they change the criteria, they add a new layer, they create a thing that requires you to react because otherwise you just hit a brick wall. And probably, I'm sure you have this conversation every day, but I'm talking out loud, I'm thinking it through in real time. Like, you almost don't even know you have a problem until people just say, I never got it. I don't know what you're talking about. Can you resend? And then like 7 days later or somewhere into the future, you'll finally get oh yeah, we couldn't deliver this error message, right? And then
Yeah.
like that's a lot of when I say damage, you can lose a lot of time, you know, in between that 7 day window, if that's what ends up being, of having to go back and recreate your steps.
Yeah, and if you're trying to run a business and your invoicing's not going through, you're going to be getting slow paid or no paid. You're going, you may, and I've heard it at least 300 times in my 3.5 years. Our invoice is not working. Email marketing, how are you going to generate leads if that's not hitting the target? Your reps, they have a CRM and they heavily send email with it. How are your reps going to make their number if they're delivering at 16%? I see it all the time, especially with HubSpot, and it's not HubSpot's fault. You have to follow sending rules. So if you don't have that observability layer all the way through from control to ending, you're gonna continue to experience. And remember, I said, mark my words, inboxing performance for the MSP is on your horizon. The market's going to move with or without them. Early adopters will get on and build their practice. People that stood around, for 3.5 years, like they did with DMARC, and say, I'm not too sure that's a thing. They're not saying that now. People I talked to years ago, they come back in, they don't even want a new trial. They go, just sign me up. I'm convinced. And so, it takes a little while for the messaging to kind of sink in, but these are real world problems, and they're not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, and this is an age-old one that applies to this conversation, is Your customer went and signed up for their own app. You didn't know, right?
Shadow
And
IT, the worst thing possible.
they put in their information, off they go. You find out when they call you later on saying, "Hey, this isn't working." And you're like, "What's this? When did this
What's
come
not
in?"
working? Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, "When did you buy this?" Or, "Oh, I just bought it last week." "Oh, well, thanks for telling me now." And now all of a sudden you have to like retrace your steps every time you add a new product.
And here's why you want to use a product like ours. We just happen to be one of the market leaders for the MSPs for DMARC analysis because you will uncover that shadow IT. And not setting it and forgetting it, that's not even reality. And the reason why MSPs want to monitor it is for that reason alone, right? They buy a new invoicing system, it's not set correctly. You have their policy set on reject. Now you're rejecting all their invoices, or the setting may change from the manufacturer. Same policy, same problem. You're going to be rejecting all their emails. Eventually, the customer wakes up and figures it out. And guess who the first call is to? It's the
MSP.
MSP. And whether it's your fault or not monitoring it, a good way to get fired. And I've literally heard more stories than I can remember about, they just fired us. I guess I need to get this DMARC stuff in place. I'm like, fair enough. Probably should have learned that a little sooner. But this is reality. You have to be able to observe and analyze to be able to make those decisions in real time. You want to know before your customer does, so that you can proactively, reach out to them and then go, oh man, thank goodness. Now I see why I pay you.
Well, the other problem is like it's the emergency room effect, right? Hey man, this is really busted. Come in and fix it. But if you do truly get blacklisted in like three, four, five places,
Oh,
it's
that's
not overnight fix.
No, it's a long road to hoe. Now we do reputation monitoring in our platform, so you can get started early, but
Mm.
it's best to use an observability layer like our new Easy Sender platform so that you can be seeing these issues, as they're coming. When you start seeing your inbox performance dropping, you know something's wrong before you get to those blacklist layers. And this is all, observability and prevention. You don't have to live through these emergency room situations anymore. You can prevent all of that by simply having, an all-in-one platform to observe it and fix it before it ever starts.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. They said I forgot where I read it. It was a couple weeks ago. They're saying the average business, it's not one domain anymore. They're averaging something like 4 to 6 domains per company. I mean, here's the problem, right? You bought it, and then it's clear if you haven't paid attention, if you haven't used a domain for things like email, they talk about warming up, right? Like if you
Yeah.
start sending too many emails on, for the first time under a new domain, new account, you might gonna have a problem.
Yeah, and that's why you want to use a product like ours, the Easy Sender tab, because you will be able to do warm up and observability while you're growing. Warm up and growing is what it's called, or warm up and scaling while you're doing that, and make sure you don't start redlining, and doing too much. And we make an entire suite,
So,
to
so,
to
so
to avoid all of that.
totally probable where somebody bought a domain, connected it to HubSpot, right? Hey, I'm going to run a new campaign. Let's go add a new domain. We're going to call this georgenewproduct.com. Bam, they send it out. Nothing's getting delivered.
It will quickly not be delivering once Microsoft or Google starts getting a hold of it, or any one of the other 97% of the world's traffic carriers that require DMARC compliance. You have to have that control, and then you also have to have your performance observability. But control is number one. That's the foundational layer. If you're not DMARC compliant, don't waste your time. You're going to have problems. But once you get past that, if you want to maintain clean, domain health and hygiene, you're going to need to observe it. I mean, think about this. MSPs, they wouldn't sell backup and recovery without observing it. You wouldn't sell endpoint protection without observing it. You wouldn't sell a firewall service without observing it. Why
Mhm.
are you selling emailing and you're not observing the most important part from sending to ending?
100%. I'll say this. Um, it's amazing. And you're on the front end of your organization, right? Sales and prospecting, business development. Like I can't tell you how many times I've walked into any company, MSP included, right? And I'm like, yeah, so we could talk about support and operations all day long. How do you get new clients? And they're like, oh yeah, we got a couple salespeople. I was like, cool. How do they find their leads, right? Kind of goes back to your car dealer days. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh well, they go to an event or two a month, Chamber of Commerce, whatever, but they do a lot of emailing. And I was like, well, what about picking up the phone? And they're like, yeah, I guess they eventually have to do that. And I was like, no, part of the problem and why I've always heard this, Mike, and tell me if you've heard differently. I was like, email plus another action, right? Like you got to pick up the phone or you got to send a text message or you got to send them a message on LinkedIn or you got to do something else other than just email. And now it's starting to make sense on obviously they say you have to have so many touch points before you get a hold of someone, but if your email never got delivered, then your second connection attempt is actually your first one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, nothing gets off the starting line without that email. And so, speaking of leads, EasyDmarc makes an inbound lead generation using DMARC compliance. We absolutely set ourselves apart from all the other DMARC analytics in the platform. And this was a process that we invented internally. We have a domain scanner on our front page, and people scan their domain, and we pull that domain and we enrich it into a ready to contact opportunity. And we get 22,000 domain scans a month on our website. So we have an endless supply of leads. And in fact, we only handle the top 2,000 because those are the large enterprise and that's what we are. Those other 20,000 that we get a month, those are all SMB contacts that we leave to our MSPs. Now, if an MSP wants to embed our domain scanner in their website, they can gain that same functionality. So when you drive traffic to your website, people scan their domain, they get a risk assessment profile, and in turn, the MSP gets a completely enriched lead with email addresses, contacts, LinkedIn addresses, what the score was, automates a downloadable report in 30 seconds, literally sends it to the prospect while they're still sitting at their laptop. When their window of suggestibility is wide open, their concern is at its peak, their sales filter off, and you reach them, that the stories, the data, the psychology, it's undeniable. Endless supply of warm leads. But when you get there, it's not just about getting there with a phone call or email. With leads like that, when somebody scanned their domain, they got a bad score, they got that cognitive dissonance. That doesn't look good. It's not good. And you show up, with a badge of authority, a report that says, "Hey, you're right. It's not good. We can fix it. We should have a conversation." Right? You're not just, trying to sell them at that point. You're just aligning with really with what they want. And the closing percentages are astronomically high because you're not just showing up, you're showing up relevant. And that's the key, right? This is not the same old, hey, we're in IT, we got great service. No, thanks, George. I hear that 10 times a month. Click, right? I see you scanned your domain. Does look like you're at risk. We're specialists that can fix it. Here's a complimentary report. See how you provided value. You showed up relevant, right, with what they were looking for. And so when you do that, their sales filter is completely off. That you're not selling them. You're just giving them what they need to complete the process. And so we have created what the market, the analysts have considered a revolutionary new lead gen process, and I expect a lot of people will
So,
copy
so
us.
it's all about timing, right? Like to your point, if you contact somebody after they bought their car, sorry to keep going back to that, but everybody knows it, right?
You're not going far.
That it's like I'm out of the market.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like I don't need another car. I already bought one. But like timing was important that you caught them at the moment where they had their credit card out or their checkbook out, ready to go, and you missed your window.
Yeah, I can just tell you story after story of our early adopters, how they would send the report while the CEO of a $20 million construction firm was sitting there. His buddy had just been spoofed. He's looking at his domain score. It's a zero. He's thinking, who am I going to fire and how am I going to fix it? Our MSP emails him and says, here's your complimentary report. He looks at it and goes, I didn't ask for that, but got it anyway and goes, this doesn't look good. Looked at the email, saw the contact information, picked up the phone, and our MSP just did a deal right over the phone. And so
Wow.
those are the type of, that's not going to happen every single time, but that will happen. And it's all based on the entire psychology of how you go about it. If you're not making the experience, what they
It's
expect,
it's a
you,
brilliant
you
move.
could,
It reminds me of a little while back. it was hot at the time, the dark web scan,
Yeah.
right? You would
Yeah.
type your
And I
name
know
and
Matt
everything.
and Kevin and those guys. And when I was working in the MSP, I did that, right, to get that. And so when I built the program, the MSP program for Easydmarc 3.5 years ago, I knew that we had to enable our MSPs to sell. Nobody, DMARC, nobody cares. That's boring. And, if that hurts your feeling, that's too bad. But, making money, generating leads with DMARC, okay, now we got their attention. And, we are, the analysts and the private equity have told us, hey, we're the biggest in the market. We have about 80% of the market share, right? And so, great, but what does that mean? It just means we're enabling our providers to go operate efficiently, and make
So
some money.
how do
I
you
love that
figure?
story.
So I assume if the scanner's on your website, it's coming to you. But like for the
Mhm.
other 20,000 that come to your website, how do you decide where those leads go?
So we did have a lead distribution, but we realized, with 3,300 partners, 20,000 leads a month, this is not sustainable. We can't farm that out. So you can customize your lead scanner in our platform, and it'll give you a little HTML code that you implement into your website that connects with our lead enrichment touchpoint platform. And so that's all connected. So the more traffic you drive when somebody's searching for, DMARC security or domain security, right? Google operates regionally, so they may present us as an option, but if you have a domain scanner, they'll present you as an option too. And remember, if you don't have a scanner or a DMARC web page, you won't be an option. So everybody's getting on it fast. And then we also provide a 100-page MSP marketing implementation workbook. This thing is state of the art. It's a $5,000 value minimum. I was a marketing consultant. I got paid for my time to build marketing campaigns for SaaS providers. So I can tell you, it's worth it. And it's an HTML document, so it's always living and up to date. And these are the same processes that we give you, and all of these steps are free. You don't have to pay money for it. These are the steps that we use to turn Easydmarc into a lead gen monster. We give you these same steps.
That's awesome. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
listen, only as good as somebody will actually go and do something with it. Let's be honest. Not your fault, right? You're trying to help people. Can't tell you how many times somebody gave it somebody, the blueprint and never to be, looked at after they went home. But that's the
Yeah.
age old
And you know how this is. The people that want to succeed, they will do what it takes. Uh, just the bottom line. MSPs, I go all over the world. The number one thing they say is more leads. In fact, Kaseya is going to release their survey at Kickoff at Connect next week. And the number one concern across the entire globe was, how do I get more opportunities?
Yeah,
And
of
so,
course.
with Easydmarc, we show up not only solving for, some config and control issues, but, how to enable our partners. And, that's kind of a commercial and a brag for us, but it's what the market demands. If your partners aren't, enabling your sales, I mean,
Yeah, no, 100%. I was just actually checking out your site, looking at a couple of different things. Love that the MSP program's front and center. It's like right there, can't go
yes,
wrong.
sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, I see a lot of the popular MSP tools, right? I see Autotask, see Halo, see Synchro, see Microsoft, see Google, Cronus, right? And so at the end of the day, it looks like you're there. I see Pax 8. Are you in the marketplace
Yeah,
for
yeah,
Pax 8?
we're in the Pax 8 marketplace. We're in multiple global marketplaces. And that's the key. If you have something that the MSP can use, make sure it's frictionless. And
Yeah,
3.5 years ago, we didn't have any of those integrations. And we have totally focused on the MSP market. Again, the analysts will tell you, you set this in your operations and it's seamless. It connects to the PSAs on the front end, all the DNS houses in the middle, and the CRMs on the back to shoot your leads right into. And so, if I was an IT operator or in the business again, those are the type of tools I'd be looking for, something that makes my life seamless.
100%, 100%. So let me ask you this:
Yeah.
how does the MSP, um, and again, not asking for pricing information here, just general idea, right?
Yeah.
Do you build the MSP and then the MSP divvies it out in whatever packaging they want, or is this on a does the MSP get billed per client, per domain?
Yeah,
Like
we
how does
build them
that?
per, we build them, our retail price per domain is 10 domains with a 10 domain minimum. So it's only 100 US bucks a month to start. The lead generation comes with it. It's nothing extra. I mean, everybody that signs up goes, man, this was easy. And we always say, it's in the name, it's in the name. And it makes it simple because an MSP can then do the analysis, the observability, and to be able to see the outcomes of a customer sending streams. And when those outcomes are, your invoicing delivering at 12%, you can simply have a conversation and say, how's invoicing going for you? And when they go, I'm down 20,000 in revenue, there's some money to be made because they're eventually going to ask you, how much is it going to cost to fix it? He just told you he's 20,000 down in revenue. He may have told you, I use MailChimp and it's delivering at 9%. My email marketing is in a dead stall. My business is in a dead stall. My CRM is delivering at 16%. My reps can't make their number. He just gave you the keys to the kingdom. So when he says, how much is it going to cost to fix it? How much do you want to charge him? He's got 10 sources. Maybe you charge him $1,000 in configuration and $100 a month.
Outcome based billing.
Outcome-based, value-based pricing, and here I am charging you a little old $10. So, how much money do you want to make? And this gives the MSP flexibility. They can build it in, line item. Some people charge for assessment fees. Some people charge consulting fees to fix it. There's all kinds of, monetization strategies, and MSP can go get extra dollars that are available.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, no, I was on here. You guys, there's a but, and it's not just DMARC. I see SPF, I see DKIM,
Oh yeah,
something called.
that's all part of the process. You have to get SPF and DKIM in configured to be able to then lock down your DMARC policy.
Got it. So you guys have a lot of. Then there's a domain scanner, DNS record checker, phishing link, reputation. Like you haven't stopped, right? Like you
No,
keep
no.
going.
Yeah, and we allow the customer to embed a lot of those features in their website. And if you don't know the story, it's very interesting because of AI, website traffic has plummeted because AI will summarize what you do and just say, here's your best choices, instead of somebody going, oh, I see this blog that ABC MSP put, so I go to their site and I may nose around and submit a request. Most of that's gone. So website traffic is down, but tool usage has skyrocketed because it hasn't learned correctly how to do all the tools where you can implement into your business. There are some things that you can do and get some Python stuff, but it won't just like it be like a marketplace yet, but it's probably coming. My point is tool usage is way up. So when MSPs embed our tools in their website, it just drives traffic to their website.
It's very true, right? Like basically in a nutshell, to your point, if you went to a search engine, you typed in a topic, you would get pages of results, right? You could
Yep.
decide which one, was the ultimate answer for you, but you got to decide that. Now they're just giving you one answer, right?
The
So
AI summary, that's the first one you get, and then you got to go below it if you want to look at the individual pages.
changes the whole game, man. It
It
really
does. And so
does.
we, as a partner in the partner community, you got to be able to adapt to your providers so they can go make some money and still operate.
Um, do you think zooming out, because you said you talk to 10,000 MSPs a year, it's a lot of MSPs. So let me give you some
I'm
macro
on a lot of
questions.
stages. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let me ask you some macro questions.
Okay.
Fast forward 4 years from now to 2030.
Hmm.
Are you subscribing to the messaging out there that the MSP industry will be absolutely decimated by all the AI stuff that's going on by that point? Or do you think that that is absolute funny business and that's not actually what's happening?
I think the human capital will always be needed. I don't think that, that there's not that there'll be some automation, but you look, anytime there's automation, there's new industries spurned from that automation, whether, we went from the agricultural to the Iron Age, or the Iron Age to then, this age to the industrial age to the information age. There's new jobs that keep popping up, and, revenue replacement, or work and placement, replacement. There'll be some of that, but a lot of this will just be shuffling positions, because AI spawned, you'll need more AI this or that. I think there'll be some efficiencies, so you may not need as many bodies to do some of this stuff, and you certainly will have a lot of tool sets to automate and give you insight that you'd never seen before to make better decisions. But again, replacing the human being, you're still going to have that human to human interaction because if every human's replaced, then nobody works, then nobody buys anything. It's all a circular firing squad. So we automated everything and we're all out of a job. Okay, let's just throw it all away and go back to work, shall we? Let's do
Yeah,
that.
I agree. I was reading this past weekend that they think that all these mega companies, right? The ones that have dropped 8, 10, 15, 20, 30,000 people, right? Because AI was all the rage. They're thinking there's going to be this hiring swing back in 2027.
I have no doubt that they will not see they'll see a lot of unintended consequences like, oh, we've got gaps everywhere. AI simply at this moment cannot fill every single human gap that human capital is needed for. You're just going to have the bodies now. Uh, just like, you know, there's not a lot of steel workers because that was outsourced or this was outsourced or farmers. We used to be agricultural. Now there's only so many farmers to produce for all of us. Things change. People move to different positions and move around. I love Elon Musk's idea. Matter of fact, you give me a robot and he can do my job and I'll just collect his paycheck. I'm going to a beach in Maui somewhere and sit my ties while my robot's working.
Hmm, that's interesting.
I love that idea. I go, that Elon Musk, that tricky dude.
Speaking about Elon, he was saying that you could like buy a Tesla and enter your Tesla into Tesla's version of the robotaxi.
I saw
And
that.
so for so many hours a day or a week,
Your
your
car can
car is
just
making
drive
money.
off and go make you money. Love that idea. I'm going to have my Tesla and my robot just making me money. Matter of fact, I might get 10 robots.
Are we back to the old scene mailbox money?
Yeah,
I
yes.
like it. I
Uh,
like it a lot. This is
just
great. So since next week's around the corner, when are we gonna see your big main stage diamond debut here
Yeah,
at
I'm on
Kaseya?
Thursday morning. A lot of Kaseya people before me, but I'm on Thursday morning on the main stage in front of about 3,500 people. So we'll remind you again of who we are in the marketplace, but most importantly, what's coming next with that observability layer from sending to ending, Easy Sender that's rolling out for the MSP. It's a natural next step for them, but looking forward to it.
That's great. So Thursday, so this upcoming
Thursday, I
Thursday.
think it's nine, not around 9:20
Okay.
a.m., something like that.
So not too early. Yeah, at least
Not,
you got
yeah,
past whatever happened the night before.
right. And that's the last full day. So, some of those guys will be dragging in. So I'll need you to have a little bit of coffee and a couple pieces of toast and hear what I have to say.
Are you so you've been around the industry for a while. How many events have you done in Vegas?
I've done probably a half a dozen, maybe more.
Okay.
Um, you know, it, Vegas is Vegas. Not my favorite site. Barcelona, hello. I'm going to Prague in June. Hello. Been to some other nice countries. Vegas, you got to walk a lot. Those casinos are huge. The hotel's huge. By the time you get to the convention floor and you're lugging you're schlepping all your swag, and it's just wow.
You
Yeah.
will definitely get your steps in. I think last time I did an event, a conference in Vegas, from my room in the hotel to the show floor was 1 mile
Yeah. In the hotel.
in the
That's
hotel.
that's just nuts. I'm not old enough to need a scooter, but I'm starting to think it might be a good idea.
That, they say like the Mirage, right? Like, when you do the strip, you're like, oh, that's really close. It's not.
Never do that. I learned my lesson the first time I went to Vegas, walked out and that was before all the shops were right up on the sidewalk. You'd see the next hotel and you go, oh, it's just right there. And about 30 minutes later, you're like, we're not even there yet. Don't never do that.
It is crazy. Now, I will say this. Um, do yourself a favor and if you can keep everybody on site, and I know that's impossible, but if you can keep the majority of the people that you're working with on site, that's the key. And I'll be the total transparency because that's my jam. I haven't done an event in Vegas in a long years, and part of the reason why was the Vegas effect, right? Like
Yeah.
people just, said they were going to a conference and didn't quite make it. But from what I mean, and again, not I'm not on anybody's payroll. This is just George speaking. From all the people who have done this event over the last 3, 4 years, they said that Kaseya has figured out a way to to entice people to not leave the property.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, you getting your MSPs interested in the vendors. These are important shows for us. If you don't show up, you're left out. Out of sight, out of mind. And not every event is one to one. There's not a one-to-one ROI. And so, any sales leader that is thinking that should probably readjust their thinking, because if you're not showing up consistently, your branding, these people are buying when they're not around you a lot of times, but they've seen you on stage and you've planted that inception in their mind that eventually comes out the other side as action. And so that's what we teach our sellers, how to influence people to take action. And so you have to show up, and going to shows where the coordinator or the host is engaging their MSPs with the vendors, always my favorite shows.
I agree. So it sounds like we're going to run into you next week. Sounds like we're going to run into you in Prague. It's going to be
Looking
good.
forward to it.
Have
Looking
you been to
forward to
Prague
it.
before?
Never been to Prague, and I'm actually going to take my wife. She's going to be able to go shopping and vacation while I'm actually working.
I went to Prague 2 years ago for an Enable event. Apparently, there's not a lot of places in Prague to hold a conference of this size, so it is definitely the same place. But I will tell you, popular time of year to be there, which is great. And this is the birthplace of the Pilsner beer. I don't know if people knew that. And you can get a pint of Pilsner for like less than $1.
Sign me up. I'm going to have to take a sip.
And it's not even like a game special. This is just the regular price.
The home of the Pilsner. They've got it
Exactly.
ready.
This is
Man,
exciting.
I'm looking forward to it, George. Can't wait to meet up and see you in person, man.
100%. So Mike Anderson from Easydmarc, it's all one word, Easydmarc, DMARC.com. When you get to that page, you'll see MSP and resellers right up top. You literally, it's in the middle of the page. Can't go wrong. That's, go check out that page if you're an MSP listening to this. And I'll tell you what, if you are headed to Vegas next week, drop Mike a line, drop me a line. By the way, if you're listening to the audio version of this, Mike Anderson, you're like, how many Mike Andersons can there be? Mike Anderson, Easydmarc. I'm sure there's only one Mike Anderson at the
Yeah, there's
company.
me. There's me.
So you'll find him online. You'll find me online. We're excited to see you in person because, guys, we love all this digital stuff, but I want the Pilsner at the conference
There's
with you.
nothing better. There's nothing better. Can't wait to see you, George.
That's the trick. Mike, thank you for joining us. Good luck on your main stage. Look,
Thank you.
look, I'm gonna sit in the back of the room and watch you live.
Yeah.
For everyone else, this session was recorded. You'll find it on mspinitiative.com. Make sure to like, download, subscribe, forward, all that good stuff. You know what to do. And we'll see you on site. Otherwise, mspinitiative.com to see where we're going for the rest of the year. We'll be posting the second half of the year update probably after this next rash of events. Otherwise, see you on site. Catch you on the next one.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.